don't need to move up to get a cornerback because it's a cornerback late in draft. And then furthermore, the Bills went to the AFC Championship, game with an undrafted cornerback at number 2. Levi Wallace is undrafted. So if they can, get that far with an undrafted cornerback, you really don't need a bona fide. You don't need to reach, for, per se, a Patrick Surtain or, a Khalid Fairley may slide at 30 to them, but, once again, like I say, it's going to be a lot of best available players at pick 30.
That's right.
You just have to see what route the Bills need to go.
And
I don't think they need an
impact
starter per se, because when you look at the trade they did with Steph Diggs, that was obvious that everybody's back. So there's no room for somebody to come in and start. It's room for somebody to be an impact in a situation, basically like a passing situation or, a certain run package. So right now, Bills are looking for quality depth and dynamic rookies that they can develop later on.
Yeah, and speaking of the guys that they're going to be looking for, we'll take a look at who the Draft Network deems are the Bills' most important targets by position in the draft this year. Some things I don't necessarily agree with, and that's why we're going to talk about it. Listing wide receiver as a primary need is a little bit bizarre in my opinion. Secondary needs, I'm not sure if I'd have tight end there, but running back and interior defensive line, definitely. Something about just bringing in another developmental tight end when they already have, Tommy Sweeney, Dawson Knox, bring someone in the same mold. I get why you do, because tight ends are usually, a couple years away from impacting in the NFL right away. And then ancillary needs, which I had to Google the definition of that word, offensive tackle, interior offensive line, which I think could be a little bit higher personally, safety, linebacker, and quarterback. And then obviously the draft picks there. So Muki, is there anything here that's glaringly wrong to you, or do you think they have it right?
They don't have this right.
I don't even think it's close.
If this was put out before free agency, okay, I understand to some degree, but we got to shuffle the deck there a little bit. Linebackers right now is a primary. I had to ask Coach McDermott, with the moves that New England made with bringing in these 2 tight ends. I understand that Matt Milano was a key, bring back, but do you need more help at linebacker? Because hey, we had Matt Milano out there with Travis Kelce, and the Bills didn't win. So With that being said, you need more depth and more dynamic guys at that position. So linebacker is definitely a primary need. And then furthermore, Matt Milano gets hurt. AJ Klein, he was, the Bills, basically, made him play a little bit more aggressive to his strong suits, but he still is a liability in coverage. So you got to look at that type of deal. And then the guys that you had after that were injury guys, Dobson came in and played like a dog. During that Miami Dolphin game, he's definitely showed promise. He's earned a spot on the roster, but you need to get more players, at a surplus of linebacker right now at a need. Dude, just imagine Divine Diablo at 6'4", 230-pound safety walking down as a will right next to Tremaine Edmonds, who's 6'5", 260.
I have nightmares about that.
Size and speed, man. You got to get guys that can run with the cheetah. Eric Stokes is out there. He could be potentially brought in at 30 just because he run a 4.25. So, and he's 6'2". So it's definitely some guys. You like my guy put up Fidi Melifonwu, 6'3", 195 pounds, rangy. Definitely likes to come up and hit. You got Trill Williams, another Syracuse guy. The Syracuse Scouts, all right. Boston College, Syracuse, they pulled from there. Yeah, some of those scouts were on those staffs prior to their time in Buffalo. So maybe might be some Syracuse blood being drafted, or some, be at Boston College with Matt Milano already in the works. So, it's that way. I mean, you can it's a surplus of corners that will be available if you feel that any one of those guys can beat out Levi Wallace. Hey, he was undrafted, so the Bills have an entire 7th-round draft to find a number 2 corner.
And on top of that, Dane Jackson looked good against DeAndre Hopkins last year. So I'm not going to say he's going to be a starting cornerback next year, but he might be a season away from that potentially. At least, stick into the rotation a little bit more this year. I'm really excited to see him get some more playing time. Kevin, did you want to touch any more on these draft needs here? Anything you wanted to point out that maybe you think is a little too high or too low in here, or should we get into the draft?
I mean, quarterback, that shouldn't even be on the list. They have probably the best quarterback room in the league.
That's what I was saying, right?
They have a top 1, top 2, and top. Like, really, they have a developmental guy in Fromm. They have a top number 2, and they have a top number 1. I mean, it's not even close to even anywhere near a list.
And they do actually have a don't need category.
Yes. He would be on, that would be on the don't need category for sure. I mean, wide receiver needs to be moved down. I'm fine with edge and cornerback. If you want to put up linebacker, swap that with a receiver. Receiver's an ancillary need. It needs to go down 2 levels. If there's a really premier player they can't pass on, they will have the development of it. You know, Cole Beasley's you don't know how long you have these guys. If that's how they feel they'd like to do it, and obviously, Sanders is only here for a year. If they're thinking about that, fine. But I can't list a receiver as more than an ancillary need. The other ones are okay. IDL is probably an ancillary need. We'll roll with it. CB and edge I'm fine with that as primary needs. And move linebacker up would be
Who's responsible for putting receivers as a primary need, if I may ask?
Your guess is as good as mine. It's what the Draft Network, they do have this nice little chart, the one webpage they have where they list every team in the NFL as primary, secondary, and so on. But going through it, there were a few questionable things, not just on the Bills, but I'm guessing it hasn't been updated since the beginning of free agency.
It's after John Brown.
Primary.
That still shouldn't be up there. They had 2 receivers. The Bills had 2 receivers with a combined over 200 catches. That's not a primary need. They both back.
They both caught 76% of their passes too. They were 1 and 4 all time in catch percentage in Bills wide receiver seasons.